Kia ora koutou, my name is Ruth. I'm one of the co-managers for 48 Hours as well as past participant. I'm hosting this short series of podcasts about tackling the shoot weekend. This second episode is all about Saturday.
Woo!
Shoot day for most teams. I've got two veterans here with me who are pretty familiar with the competition and have some good advice about how to make Saturday work. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure thing. Kia ora, my name is Stella Reid, and I've never been described as a veteran of anything, so it's quite exciting.
Comes with age. It's just when you don't stop, keep going, and people are like, "Oh, you're a veteran."
Yeah. It's the
I
battle
can't
scars.
move on. That's all. Yeah, the scars. My name's Hewison, and I too am a veteran of the 48 Hours. I've got some scars to prove it as well.
That's right, and we're here to talk about being in the trenches.
And so you guys are, you know, we say you're veterans, but you've also made it work. Like, you've both won, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have some medals. How long shall I go with the war analogy?
Just give us a brief lowdown maybe on your successful 48 hours, and also if you've got any. I know Dean's got an unsuccessful story too.
Oh yeah, but that wasn't unsuccessful on the Saturday though. So I mean, it depends on how far you want to go into this
Yes.
weekend. I guess I entered the first one in Wellington in 2004, and then had kind of done most of them up until sort of 2016 or something, and then I've just kind of been a bit more intermittent after that. And we won in 2013 with the Sleeping Plot in Wellington and National, and then my friend Richard and I did a duo team in 2018, and we won Wellington for that, and we're and a couple of other national awards for that one as well. And then the next time I entered after that was 2021, and again we won Wellington and the nationals for Good Girl.
Awesome. And you've also been at the other end winning Best Disqualified Film as well, eh?
We were the first Best Disqualified film.
Oh, no way.
They created that award kind of as a kind of like pick yourselves up, guys, dust yourself off sort of thing. We had a really great film in 2008 called Half a Horse, and it was the last hour just trying to export it off the computer onto a mini DV camera, and if we had restarted the computer, it would have sorted it out. But it was sending the sound to the speakers and not to the recording device, and we were just too kind of shattered to be aware of that, and so we handed it in with no sound.
What about you, Stella? You guys were second last. I kept saying last year, but the year before last.
That's exactly right. I forget about time, the passage of time.
Yeah.
We were runner-up in the last competition, and then we've had some successes along the way. I've kind of jumped in and out, done some random years. My very first year doing it was either 2010 or 2011. I can't remember which year it was. And we did it in Whanganui. So we had to run quickly with our film in an envelope for a Justice of the Peace to sign, who was staying up with a little whiskey. And he was so excited
Staying
for
up
us.
to 7 p.m.
To 7 p.m, yeah. Well, he was ancient. And he had to sign the back of the envelope for us. I remember that, yeah. And we were stoked because I was very young, and we made the Wellington City Finals, and everybody got to see our
What was that film?
terribly low-res film. Now, it was called, so what was Blanking, The Art of Blanking, which was a mockumentary, which we thought was a very interesting take. However, mockumentaries were extremely popular, which we did not realise, and it was about a viral trend that was taking off of hiding in photos so people can't see you. And I played the very upset wife with a man who'd become completely obsessed with hiding. At the ripe age of 21.
Yeah, we see a lot of young people playing old people, and it's not always super realistic, to be honest. Hey, well, so...
My mum was married at 21.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
So what?
She was divorced by everyone.
Hey, if someone had asked me at 21, I bet you I would have said yes.
Probably. You're like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
Hey, well, what does Saturday look like for you guys? You know, like obviously Friday is all the intense coming up with the ideas, and I guess if all's gone well, you've woken up on Saturday morning with a really amazing script and a plan.
Theory.
I've definitely printed something out. That's often what I do because I'm a paper person. So whether it's a script or just a series of ideas, I'm holding a piece of paper.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, all of this comes with the caveat that every film is different and blah, blah, blah. You'll have different sort of requirements of when you'll be able to shoot, and maybe you're doing something set at night, so you have to like faff around all day waiting for the night to come and all that sort of stuff. But
you could black your windows out, right?
not if you're outside.
True.
But, you know, but yeah, you can still black out windows if you feel like it. But as a sort of standard for us, we'd have a call time at 7 a.m. For the crew, and we'd have breakfast and coffee, and we'd be like, here is the script, and the script is being like printed from like 7 a.m. and people are reading it and whatnot. That script might have only been finished at 5 a.m. Perhaps, or 4 a.m. But it did get finished at some point.
Do you write like a proper script?
Yeah, I wrote a proper script. Yeah, we'll brainstorm. Like, I mean, for the Friday, we'll be kind of like up until the script is done. So we'll have the story beated out, and we'll have people looking at things they need to get, like costumes and locations and stuff. But then the writers will make sure that the script actually gets into. We use Fade In Pro, which there's a free version that you can use. It's like really great screenwriting software. It makes it really fast and easy, and we'll finish that at whatever time it takes, and then 7 o'clock is the reset for the day. And so everyone else probably left around midnight, apart from the writers, to get some sleep. And then at 7 o'clock there's some food, there's a little bit of a like, what are we doing, where are we going, what are we going to do sort of conversation, some coffee, and people read the script. At that time I'm usually doing a shot list while we're getting ready, and we'll try to be at the first location around 9. So everyone gets together, we plan, get fed, maybe I've succeeded in my shot list, and then we're on our way. And then you just kind of shoot until you don't have anything left to shoot. And like if you're outside, you're racing the sun, especially in these kind of autumn or winter sort of ones. And then if you're inside, then you can kind of just make the most of that day. But last year, when I did Good Girl last time we were doing a fully exterior shoot, so we were like done by 5, which kind of, I love being done by 5. The pressure of beating the sun is one thing, but then when you're finished at 5, you're like, oh my god, I've got all this spare time.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're going pretty prepared though, so it's not like you're sort of shooting a lot of extra stuff. You're really just shooting just what you need and keeping it pretty
I mean, if
tight.
I can shoot everything on my shot list, I know I've got the film, but I also am adjusting the shot list on the fly depending on what's going on with the day. And when I say adjusting, I mean shrinking.
Yeah, cutting, yes.
Awesome. And what about you, Stella? How are you quite so you've got a piece of paper, but maybe it's not always such a script shot list situation, or?
That's for sure. The last one we did, I storyboarded, but that's mainly just so I can picture it before, I can visualize it before we start shooting.
In that though, so you were trying to direct and act, right? So
yes.
you probably needed a bit of a visual.
And for me, there's a bit of effects going on because I was playing a lot of characters. So I was trying to picture how that could work.
Because you had whip pan transitions and stuff,
that's
right?
right.
So you got to make sure that the shot's going to be starting on a whip.
and which direction the whip is going.
Yeah.
Which for me, physics is not my strong suit. I mean, I'm assuming that the science of that is physics. I don't even know. So I had
the science of left and right.
The science of left and right. That's difficult for me. But I do have my full license.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So my team is quite small that I usually work with. So the ones that are writing are also the crew that are meeting, are also the people in front and behind the camera. And so it's kind of like our Saturday morning usually was this a good idea? And usually our conversations with each other at the end of Friday night is like, let's just sleep and we'll find out whether it's a good idea in the morning. And do you still find it funny is a big question. last year when we did, our genre was multiverse, and obviously there was about 3 to 4 hours where other people had to explain to me what a multiverse was. As somebody who's like, favourite genre of film is like, the dissolution of a marriage or something. That's definitely not my genre. So
Not quantum physics.
Yeah, that's right. Back in the physics world, I was really struggling. And when we came together on the Saturday, for us, it was about cutting how many characters we had created, how many different versions of that character, Sarah. So it was quite, once you've had a good sleep, you can look at what characters are the funniest. Obviously, everybody else chose the Austin Powers one, not me. I experienced ego death having to do an Austin Powers version.
Oh, it was so good. I love that. Oh, it's kind of cool actually. One of you seems like super structured, and one of you maybe more kind of a bit
More of a lived-in messy experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's true though. Like everyone has their own like plan, right?
Totally.
Yes, yeah. I think you should prepare a lot and also prepare to throw it all away, because you'll be surprised what actually works in the moment. Especially for me, the first thing is script. I often have to kind of like burn through cliche, and so once I actually am then acting, performing it, I find I'm constantly changing the dialogue to make it a bit more lived in and a little less like starched.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Sarah. Is usually what I write on the Friday because I'm exhausted.
Whereas I think we kind of beat ourselves around a lot on Friday to get to that point so that we can on Saturday just be like, all right, we've made our choices and let's hone. Which doesn't mean we can't like kind of change things on the day or improv, but we've done that first pass of that script where we've kind of spent 15 minutes trying to work out how to make that line work. It was being like 2 a.m. in the morning, we were like quite tired, but it's like, if we do it now we don't have to do it later. Because you don't get that refreshed on Saturday,
And that's a good rule of thumb across the weekend, really. If you do it now, you don't have to do it later.
Mm. And how do you I think you've sort of talked about that thing of testing, like, is it a good idea? Like, how do you hang on to the focus of what you're trying to do, as the day slips away and you get tireder and everyone gets cranky and there's too many beans and the lunch catering and it's all just a bit,
You're quite committed on Saturday for us. It's kind of like you've got all of Friday evening and all of the early hours of Saturday morning to really interrogate what you're doing. But then once you wake up and everyone turns up on Saturday at 7, for us it's kind of like, we're driving ahead on this.
So you just commit. You're just like, we're not going to change our mind. We're just going to do this.
I wouldn't, not at 7. I haven't in the past. It would only be if we hadn't found a satisfactory script on Friday, and we would have fought that until like 4 or 5 in the morning. Like if we got to a point where we weren't happy there, then we'd probably call it and wake up at 7 and start again. But we would. I don't know if we'd sleep very well for those couple of hours. We'd just be sitting there going, oh my god,
Yeah.
Your eyes open in bed, so
Yeah, I mean, I do know there are teams that have woken up on Saturday and just started again because they hate your idea.
Yeah.
I just am
go back
fortunate
to the
to not
other
have
one.
to have done that.
Yes, yeah.
What about you, Stella? How much do you commit? It sounds like you're a bit more let it flow a bit. But I mean, how do you stop like using? I mean, it's that thing where you've got like very little sleep. You're a bit sleep deprived. Your brain's probably a little bit fuzzy. How do you not veer off in some random direction and then make some huge like crazy wrong choice?
I mean, I think really the best like metric we've held ourselves to is it funny. And because often we're making comedies, and that's just a really easy thing to, be constantly testing. You can answer that question really easily. In the times where we've tried to make something that has more of a dramatic bent, that's a lot harder to judge in the moment, how that's gonna shake down. So you're just constantly testing it against that question: is it funny? And you can find out. And as long as you've built that through line on Friday, which is about simplicity, can you make your film like one sentence? Then you have that like end point you're trying to reach. But I'd also add, I never think there's too much beans in any catering. As a bean lover myself.
Yeah, we had a shoot.
You reached a bean limit?
Yeah, no, there was. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an unfortunate story which we might cut out, but I'll tell it. It was actually I worked with Dean on his 2013 winning film.
Sleeping Plot?
Yeah, and so we were out on the deck and it was sort of hour 12 and we were shooting in like a stairwell and we were sitting on the deck just waiting because we didn't have anything to do, and people kept coming out and just standing on the deck just quietly for a while and then kind of leaving again. And we were like, what's going on? And then I popped in to see how the shoot was going, and the DOP was like, oh, I really need to go outside and do a fart. It's all those beans. And I was like, oh, that's why everyone's been coming out to the deck. And he just been sitting in the stairwell holding it in and holding it in and just had horrible...
I didn't know this, so I was like, this
yeah, I saw you had this confused, but yeah, no. Everyone, maybe you didn't have so much lunch, but everyone in the stairwell was desperately trying not to fart loudly in the middle of a take. All just like slightly popping outside. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about performance, because I mean, one of the things that we watch a lot of 48-hour films every year, and you know, you can have the best script in the world, but if you don't have actors who can like bring it to the table, you know, sometimes that kind of loses some of the magic, and lots of people don't have pro actors. So how do you work with non-actors and you know, your dad or your kids or your neighbour, and how do you get a good performance?
Or your
dog, yeah. You guys have both worked with your children and your dogs on many occasions actually.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, if you can get yourself a good actor, like, definitely try beforehand, because they'll make your life much easier. But the important thing really is to write something that's not going to be a stretch for those people. So with The Sleeping Plot, we wrote it for a 10-year-old girl who had never seen acting on screen before, who was around for the weekend to be sort of taking coffee orders and helping with the unit. And so I was pretty nervous about that. But I don't think we gave her anything super tough to do. You know, like, we weren't giving her monologues, you know, we weren't asking her to learn long stretches of dialogue or anything like that. There weren't any extended takes of anything, so, you know, we had lots of opportunity to cut around her performance and whatnot. And, you know, we weren't asking her to do a role that was other than a 10-year-old girl. We weren't asking her to play like a school principal or anything like that, you know? So that's sort of my approach to it, is if you're going to work with non-actors, then you shouldn't try to stretch their acting chops. You should try to let them kind of play as close to what they know as possible.
And do you always cast before the Friday when you're writing?
Before the Friday?
Yeah.
No, I'll try to have options available.
Yeah.
But the caveat is always, we don't know what we're going to write, so there may not be a role. And then all of a sudden you're writing a 10-year-old girl and you're like, well, I'll better get one of those.
That's right.
You know, like, to find a 10-year-old girl, which was pretty easy in that case because she was already there. But, you know, if we had had that same idea, that would have been quite a stressful thing to work through at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Like, bringing people like, hey, can you...
but the idea kind of came from having, you know, like, because she was there, that's what, you know what I mean?
That's right,
you were using those resources you had to kind of
that's
generate
the thing, using
idea.
the resources you've got is a real key thing for 48, you know, like, it makes your life a lot easier if you're like, oh, cool, I manage a op shop, we can shoot in an op shop.
For sure, yeah.
And also, like, you've made quite visual stories too. Like, I'm just thinking you've done 2 films where the main character's a dog that can't even talk or act, right?
Well, he can act.
Okay, well, you know, I don't want to cast aspersions on Winnie's acting chops, but, you know, you've used kind of the camera shots and the way you've structured the film to, like, give Winnie a personality as opposed to Winnie...
And a lot of dog treats, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, 48 Hours is his favourite time of the year until, like, sort of 7 p.m. when he crashes and will not do anything. But yeah, I guess I don't write Winnie's shots or Winnie's scenes hoping that Winnie will do a full acting stretch for me. I do it shot by shot. I stitch it together.
But you've also acted with your dog, haven't you?
Yes.
I think COVID was the year that everyone's dogs became like dogs, invisible people, children were the main characters of that year. But yeah.
Yeah, I would find on the Friday I have in the past texted a few friends and said are you free this weekend, you know? And then invariably end up with a genre that I'm like, it's not going to work. And so I'm almost always writing with an actor in mind, which I think is really useful, because then you can play to strengths, and you also aren't writing, say, for me, like an elderly character, and then asking them to do a 12-hour shoot, or, you know, you're not trying to find somebody and then trying to figure out,
Sorry, yeah, I do that as well, but just with like one person usually.
Yeah.
So when I was working with Richard, we'd always know that Richard was going to be the lead in that. And then with Good Girl, we had Emma there, and we were like, no, Emma Draper, and we were like, no matter what happens, it's going to be Emma Draper in this
thing.
And then you might have other people on standby, or you might not. Like Emma was actually the only actor in Good Girl that was a biped, so so that actually worked out kind of fine.
Yes, yeah. I think that's why I often use myself, because I can write to my own strengths and I know what I am not capable of, you know, which I think that's an asset.
And any thoughts of, like, you know, it's not exactly the most relaxing acting gig ever, acting in 48 Hours, right? So
no.
Any kind of, you know, tips on how to make it a good time for the actor, and, you know, make it a space where they're not super stressed or getting all of that kind of energy on them?
Yeah, I think it's always good to have in mind, if you are a performer too, doing this, it's like, it's not rocket science and you're not saving lives. Like, this should be fun. So I think there's always, for me, like one argument or one sticky moment where you're like, oh, this is getting dark. And it's good to just kind of remind the room that we're all here because we actually love this form and it should be a fun time. But I think, thankfully for me as a performer, or just as a person, I love it when everybody has to be silent and pay attention to me. That's the funnest thing in the world. So as soon as there's an action, I know that I can hold court for as long as I want. So I think if you're looking for actors, and you know you have to cast friends, just cast the people that like the attention, because that's handy already. They're not going to shy away or become afraid. In fact, your job is going to be telling them to shut up.
You know,
or to stick to the dialogue.
That's great advice. Everyone's got those friends that are more of the extrovert.
And if you are going to have somebody that you know that's going to be like in your film, like, you know, you penciled someone in, like, you'll be that character, then have them around on the Friday so they can start investing in the creation of the story as well. Because, like, you know, the last time I did it, we had as much of the crew as we possibly could around on the Friday, at least for a few hours, and by the time people left, even if the story hadn't been written or even finished yet, they were kind of fired up and kind of, you know, they bought in to it.
Yeah.
Which kind of might just kind of get everybody on the same team, the same page a little bit as well.
For sure. I mean, part of that Friday for me too is going like, oh, do you have a dressing gown? Oh, yeah. So I've got hair curlers and we can make blah, blah, blah. You're slowly sort of building
building up a sense of what you can actually make, eh?
Building your art department and your wardrobe, that's right.
So, I mean, in a perfect world, you do finish by 5 p.m, but that's a bit of a dream, right?
Yeah, like twice.
Yeah, what happens when, you know, you are 14 hours in and running out of sunlight and everyone's tired and, you know, the house that you're filming in, all the flatmates want to go to bed, and so it's becoming quite awkward and perhaps you just need to leave. You know, how do you deal with that? How do you cut stuff out? What do you keep? What do you lose?
Well, that shot list that I did at 7:30 in the morning comes around with me all day, but it doesn't usually survive, you know. So, like I said, there'll be moments where you're like, okay, we really need to push through, we need to get faster, how can I simplify this? Do I need those two kind of MCUs, you know, cross-cutting, or is that two shot that I've got at the profile, will that do? It's like, oh yeah, will do. I won't have as much coverage as I wanted in the edit, but I can tell the story. So you just got to make sure that the story still gets told, and if you have to sacrifice some coverage to get to make the day, then that's fine. I mean, 48 Hours is about those sort of compromises, you know. Like, you just do what you need to do to tell the story effectively, and if it means that you don't get all the shots you want, but the story still works, then it's still a win.
I definitely have in my back pocket a location that I can return to on the Sunday, which for pickups, which I have done. You know, I did last time. We had to shoot better coverage on the Sunday, really just for logic's sake, for things to make sense, not for performance. And I just find that like handy and relieves a bit of stress to know that I can return if we miss the all important line that we have to have, or that bit of dialogue.
Hey, so that's all real amazing and good stuff. My dog's just trying to make out with my interview people. So maybe we'll just wrap up with some last little bits of advice, really just for the beginner teams out there, people who are going out, this is maybe their first or second time, they're a bit terrified. What would you say to them that they should, what are the main things you want them to think about on Saturday that would help?
I don't want to say a platitude like have fun, but I do think that's really important. And even though it is a competition, don't do it because you want to win. Don't think about impressing other people. Make something that you're proud of, you know, and make something that you find funny, I think is a handy thing as well. And use what you have. Don't invent locations, don't invent characters that you don't have actors for. I think that use what you have is
I'll second use what you have, write for what you've got. Look at on the Friday, make sure you've kind of itemised your assets, right? It's like in The Princess Bride, it's like, what have we got? If only I had a wheelbarrow and a Holocaust coat. You know, that's what you need to do to get a story kind of across the line on the Saturday. And again, I think just make sure that your shots are what you need to tell the story, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It could be, you know, you can do a 1 minute long take if you're running out of time. Like, just as long as the story gets told, because if you find yourself in the edit and you run out of shots or they're not cutting together, it can compromise the understanding of your story. So just following that, tracking that throughout the day, just like, is the story being told effectively, I think is super important.
Yeah.
Any don'ts?
I tell you what, I've got a strong don't from experience. Having got the one take genre 1 year, do not kiss a man in that one take, because you will get the worst pash rash after doing it again and again, and you'll have to explain yourself for about a week. That's a don't. It's a pretty clear don't from me.
Yeah, no, quite a specific one too.
Yeah, that's right.
Any don'ts? Well, I mean, I'd say try not to go to too many locations if you can, because it's a real time suck, packing up and going somewhere. But I mean, but sometimes you just have to. Sometimes your story calls for you to go to a bunch of locations. So, like, you know, if it's worth it for the story, then don't do that. Don't do
Yes.
the do.
and also don't underestimate taking a break and eating food and just resetting, because I think, you know, 48 hours makes you want to go, but I think eating food together and just taking a moment to reset can give you so much clarity. And I know a lot of people just kind of like eat on the go when they're shooting, but
Yeah, food's such a food on Saturday, eh?
Yeah.
That's,
integral. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, well, thank you guys. That's fantastic. Hopefully that helps all of our teams have a really good time on Saturday and think
good
about
luck.
some of the best ways to make an awesome 48-hour film.
Yeah. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.